Hello and welcome to All Things Foster, a place for coffee, connection, and community. Today we have Bryan Power on, and he's going to talk to us about attachment styles, the integrated attachment theory, and I'm really excited about it. Before we get to that, today's episode of All Things Foster is sponsored by Amarillo National Bank. We are incredibly grateful for their generous support through a major grant that allows us to continue to provide placement packages to children entering foster care throughout the 26 counties. Their commitment ensures that every child receives essential items like clothing, car seats, diapers, comfort items right when they need it most. Amarillo National Bank continues to lead the way in strengthening families and uplifting our community, and we are honored to partner with them. So thank you guys so much, Amarillo National Bank, for your support. And Bryan, thank you so much for reaching out and coming on the podcast today.
Oh, Matt, thanks for having me on the show today. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, I love the work that you're doing. And foster parenting is just such a wonderful thing. And but I know a lot of parents struggle sometimes being foster parents. It's can be very difficult. And how do you kind of keep your own relationship together and make sure that you're happy with your spouse and not letting this affect you in a negative way? And so I'm hoping that some of the information I can share today will help benefit some of your fans and some of your fans and some of your listeners, that we can help have some better relationships there. So thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely. Well, so Bryan, your work kind of take us back. Where did this start? What was the impetus to kind of get into this?
Yeah, I mean, through my own difficult situation with my wife, and we learned in 2024 how childhood trauma really plays out, and how relationships can really be affected by our own childhoods and our own trauma, the way we're perceiving things in our relationship, and our inability to have the certain tools necessary to have a good relationship. And we were kind of winging it for years, and we did pretty well overall. I never thought we had a horrible relationship, but we definitely had some difficulty working through some situations, some fights. And when we actually had our son in 2019, that's when things really began to get more difficult, because children really challenge you, and they really bring out the best and the worst of you as parents. And we start to realize like how our differences were, and my different ideas on how to parent and her ideas on how to parent really became very conflicting. And over the next 5 years or so, it just got kind of worse and worse, and we didn't know how to fix it. And then in 2024, she would actually challenge me early on to in 2024 to see a therapist. And I said, okay, fine, I'll agree to that. I want to learn. I want to get better and fair. But I also challenged her to see a therapist, because in my mind, she was the one with all the issues, right? And in her mind, of course, I'm the one with all the issues.
Oh, yeah.
And so the first thing we have to realize is that, we're probably both having some issues, and we both need to learn some things and step up. And so but that's the first step, is to just take some responsibility, say, okay, you know what, I want to learn and change and be better here. So let me just start doing this work. Whether my partner decides to come with me or not doesn't matter. It's just our own thing. So if you're seeing some issues in your household and relationships and stuff, be open to the idea of doing whatever it takes to kind of fix that, right? So, but yeah, that would start us on a journey. She started seeing a childhood trauma specialist, and I was seeing my own therapist. And over the next 4 months, though, our emotional trauma from our childhoods was triggering so much, and it began this emotional turmoil. After about 4 months of just insanity, literal, like just emotional chaos.
Yeah.
She would actually reach for a restraining order against me for emotional safety, not for physical. I never threatened my wife physically. I would not that kind of guy, but at the emotional level, she just couldn't do it anymore. And she was trying to get to that space. I was trying to keep the family together, and so the more I tried to keep it together, the more she needed some space, and that's really became the issue. But that restraining order would prove to be a valuable tool, actually. And eventually we would have some time away, and the work that we were able to continue to do would actually prove to be invaluable, so that we learned a lot of lessons. We learned a lot about ourselves. We learned a lot of tools that we didn't have before, that we now implement into our relationship, that are now beneficial, that keep us having a healthier, happier relationship today. And so, and that was the work and the journey that I was very blessed to actually go through. It was one of the hardest times in my life, not something I recommend going through, but it was such a blessing now that on the other side of this thing, I just want to, share some of the information with others out there, and hope that they can maybe learn some of these tools as well, and maybe save, or even if not save a relationship, maybe just make it better, even if it's not at that critical stage. Maybe we could take you from kind of mediocrity to something fantastic, because I truly believe that having a great relationship with our spouse is the joy of the day, right? It's something that
Mm.
is a true blessing. And, when you're finding yourself struggling in a relationship, that kind of hurts, and it doesn't feel great, And so, but it's out there. It's just that we need the tools to be able to do it, and we can definitely elevate our relationship. So that's what I'm here for. So thanks so much for having me on the show, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say,
Yeah.
I think it's really it's really interesting. First of all, that um, you know a couple can have a an okay marriage, and then when they start, whether they have biological kids or they bring in kiddos from foster care, it magnifies the issues that they're they're kind of able to muddle through. But then when you bring in this external thing, man, it really complicates things. And I can't tell you how many friends that I've seen that have fostered, that have it has caused tremendous struggles in their marriage,
Yeah.
because they were kind of coasting, and then you bring in this outside influence that really makes things difficult.
Yeah, kids will do that whether they're your own or whether they're somebody else's. If you're bringing them into the house, it definitely changes the dynamics of the family and the household. And so, how do we navigate through that? That's a challenge. And so, without some tools and not without some awareness there, that just makes it even more and more difficult. So, even with the tools and awareness, there's going to be challenges. But at least once you have the tools, you can then at least address them in a much healthier way and work through them. And I think ultimately come out on the other side stronger and better for it. But yeah,
For
without the
sure.
tools, it's near impossible.
No doubt. So you talk about lay the foundation for us first. What is the integrated attachment theory? Kind of walk us through that.
So, integrated attachment theory is actually a program created by a woman named Thais Gibson, Thais Gibson, and she is out of Canada. And I actually was very fortunate to come across a video of her on a podcast on the Mel Robbins show. And she was talking about attachment theory. And this was about a month or so before my wife and I would ultimately have the restraining order and I would leave the house, if you will. But when I came across this video, I was fascinated. I thought, man, this girl knows some stuff. There's some real answers here. I saw my wife was leaning one way, I was leaning another way, and saw some of the emotional turmoil stuff that was coming because of those things. And I was just fascinated by that work. So I decided to delve into that. She has a personal development school that you can join online, and it's a really incredible program. There's some really great videos, workbooks, and everything else. And I just decided to delve into that work. And as I began to do that work, it was a little too late for my wife and I, because things would just continue to spiral. And then eventually I was out of the house. But once I was out, I still was just interested in learning more, because I knew there were answers here, and I just wanted to have a great relationship with somebody. Even if it wasn't, even if I couldn't fix the relationship with my wife at that time, I just figured, well, I want to be able to have these tools. So if I do get another opportunity someday, I want to be able to do it better. And
Yeah.
so I continue to learn those tools. And she has a coaching program that teaches you, these 6 core elements of the integrated attachment theory program, and how to be a coach. I didn't know if I would actually be a coach or not. I just wanted to learn it. So I figured I'm going to take this program and just see where it goes. And so,
Yeah.
amen, like I started to take the coaching program, and basically integrated attachment theory program is based around 6 pillars, if you will, that really help move us from the insecure attachment styles to the secure attachment style. And just real quick on the attachment styles, in case you're not sure or aware of those.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
we.
so there's four
Yeah.
attachment styles. Number one, you have a secure attachment
Yeah.
style. These are people that really know how to communicate well, set good boundaries, really are emotionally more stable. They just behave very well. They just do it right. And if the relationship is important to them, but God forbid if it doesn't kind of work out, for certain reasons, they're emotionally stable about it. They just kind of accept it and move on, and that's just kind of life. They're not distraught by it. They're not completely, their lives aren't completely destroyed if they do break up and stuff. And that's where most of us want to be. We just want to know how to do those things,
Mm.
communicate, set boundaries, all those things. But I think, unfortunately, most of us fall in one of the other 3 categories,
Yeah.
which is you're anxious, preoccupied. That's somebody who really craves a lot of connection. A lot of times there's communicating a lot, maybe over texting sometimes, 10 times a day, always want to be in touch and in contact with their spouse and their loved one. Maybe they fall in love very quick too. Maybe after 2 weeks, they're already seeing wedding bells type of thing. And the relationship just becomes the all-encompassing thing in their life, and they will do anything to kind of keep the relationship at the forefront, and to the point where it's unhealthy, to the point
Yeah.
where, at times it can be codependency, and some of that, unhealthy behaviors kind of really creep in there, and they forget a lot about themselves, and so a lot of times have resentment and stuff because they're doing things too much. But ultimately, that they just, again, these are acting off of wounds that they don't even realize sometimes they're doing, but very unhealthy attachment style to be in. On the flip side of that is what's called the dismissive avoidant. A lot of times,
Mm.
dismissive avoidants have a hard time figuring out their emotions. If they do feel emotions, those are bad. We don't want to feel those. It's not right to feel those. They typically have a wound of being like defective or feeling like they're broken. They can't get it right, and they really crave a lot of independence, hyper independent. They definitely communicate a lot more with their actions, and so communication is difficult because they don't verbalize as much. They really think that their actions should speak enough.
Hmm.
So it can be a challenge. Now you can see if somebody is very anxious and somebody is more dismissive, where they crave a lot of isolation.
Yeah.
That can be a real problem in a
Oh,
relationship. And so,
absolutely.
and so that's really where my wife and I were at the time when things really got bad. She was leaning a lot of dismissive, and I was kind of getting the anxious. As more she leaned into dismissive, it really brought more and more of my anxiety out. And so that's where a real problem came out for us. And in between those is what's called a fearful avoidant. Fearful avoidants kind of have all these wounds, and they kind of swing both ways. One week they're anxious and they're feeling really connected and feeling loving and good, and maybe the following week they're all of a sudden just creating chaos for no reason. It's lack of trust. All of a sudden they're maybe even breaking up with you, or causing a fight, or having some small issue become overwhelming to where it's just like kind of odd and becomes a little bit more chaotic. And so again, just a very unhealthy attachment style. And
Mm.
so when we have all these core wounds, and that's really what's driving these unhealthy attachment styles, is the core wounds. And a lot of those core wounds develop in our childhood.
Yeah.
And that's where I think foster parenting can be so valuable to helping these young kids, not have as many wounds as possible, and maybe being aware of these things can help us be better parents, so that we don't pass these traits on to them. But those are the 4 attachment styles. So Thais Gibson decided, okay, it's great to know what the attachment style is, okay, but how do we then fix it? And that's where she created the integrated attachment theory program, which is the 6 pillars, which are, number one, your core wounds. Okay, those are the subconscious thoughts and behaviors, beliefs that we have from our,
Mm.
again, usually from some sort of trauma that we've developed a lot of times in our early childhood.
Hmm.
So fear of abandonment, fear of being alone, fear of not being good enough, or fear of I'm broken, defective, all these different types of subconscious wounds that we're now playing in our own heads, that are causing us to act in ways that we don't understand. And what I learned is that 95 to 97% of our decisions in life are really made by the subconscious,
Right.
and that the conscious cannot outwill or overpower the subconscious. So even
Hmm.
though consciously I want to do one thing, my subconscious wounds are actually going to drive it to do another thing that is going to take me a different place. And so consciously I may be thinking I'm doing one thing right, but subconsciously I'm behaving in a way that's not really healthy. And so we
Hmm.
really have to fix these subconscious wounds, if you will. So the core wounds are number one and valuable. Number two, it's our needs. How do I learn to discover and uncover what my true needs are? And then
Hmm.
how do I fill my needs mostly on my own? Because I don't want to outsource my needs. I want to be able to be in control of those. And if I can fulfill most of my needs on my own, I'm going to feel pretty good about my day and pretty good about my life. And so that's invaluable. Number two. Number three is our beliefs. Sorry, I like to talk about our emotions. Number three is emotions. And
Hmm.
our emotions are invaluable. There's no good or bad emotion. It's just what are emotions telling us, right? And so
Yeah.
if I'm angry, if I'm feeling hurt, if I'm feeling scared, or if I'm feeling happy, or feeling joyful, what is the belief that's causing me to feel these emotions? And I have to just think deep into that, because it's one thing if you're scared because you're in the middle of the woods, and you're lost or something, and that's natural per se.
Yeah.
But if I'm scared for something that seems, just to maybe just take a walk down the road, or just into a supermarket, or something that seems a little odd, that I would be scared in that instance, it may just be because I have a emotional trigger. I have a wound
Hmm.
in there that's causing me to feel unsafe, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I have to just look at that. What are my emotions telling me? What are my beliefs behind the emotion, if you will? So that's number three. Number four is our boundaries. That's a big one. How do we set boundaries? I think, especially as parents, we forget
Hmm.
sometimes how to set our own boundaries with the kids, boundaries with our spouse, boundaries with our family members sometimes. And so that, we can keep keep ourselves together a little bit. I always say that boundaries are like the fence around the house, and we're the house. And so the fence
Hmm.
protects the house. And so I've
Yeah.
got to be able to build a fence that's decent, that's not too extreme, but also not boundaryless, where anybody can just come in and walk on me, right? And so boundaries are super important.
And
Number five,
hard to do, especially
yeah,
with insecure attachments, right?
yeah.
Setting those boundaries is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, no doubt. All these things are challenging, but they do get better as you practice them. They do get better as you become more aware of them, and then little by little take some steps. It's all a process for sure. But yeah, nothing's easy per se, but it definitely works, and it definitely makes a difference when we do implement some of them. So that's number four. Number five is our communication. This was a huge one. How do we communicate in a way that actually works? And my wife and I would always have these disagreements, and a lot of times in the past, I was listening to defend myself, okay, rather than listening to truly understand my wife. I think that's something a lot of us do. And my wife would always be like, well, you're not listening to me. And I'd be like, of course I am. I'm listening because I want to defend myself and tell you why you're wrong and why that's not the truth and that's not the way. Okay. And that's not, my wife never felt heard, never felt, and she was right. I didn't understand what she was trying to convey to me because my wounds wouldn't allow that. So how do I listen in a way that actually I can listen to understand and try to, truly learn from this woman who's trying to share her heart with me, trying to share her thoughts, her beliefs on this. And a lot of times she's right. Right. So I can't just poo poo them and think, I'm always right. No. And a lot of times we just now we do things differently, and we communicate in a way that, yeah, we listen to each other much more intensely, and we have much better discussions. And there's some exercises that we do to help us along with that. And then last but not least is our behaviors. How do I change some of the negative behaviors into more positive behaviors? I always say, like, God forbid I'm a little emotionally triggered, instead of flying off the handle, now I can maybe say, hey, you know what, I'm going to grab my sneakers. I'm going to go for a little walk, maybe go outside for an hour or two, just walk around the block. And I'll do this sometimes. It's a great one
Hmm.
for me. I'll just grab my sneakers and walk for an hour. And after an hour, I can feel more emotionally regulated. I come back in the house, and I'm more apt to have a better discussion and be able to kind of get through, whatever experience we're going here in a much healthier way. So changing my behaviors on a daily basis, just in a way that, allows me to look more respectful, respect myself more, respect others more, and for them to be able to look on and say, okay, this is a guy that, has it together, and isn't the crazy guy or something like that, So those six core pillars, like you said, are challenging, but those six core pillars really move the needle when we learn how to, utilize those every day and improve on them every day, and a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. Next thing we're how do you climb, a 1,000-foot building? Well, a step at a time. And so
Yeah.
that's all we got to do is just take a little step, little step, little step, and all of a sudden, we're starting to get towards the top. And it's pretty exciting when you start to implement some of these and start to see some results, and actually it makes a difference, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what a healthy relationship is supposed to look like. This is what healthy communication is like. This is how to set a boundary and be respectful of boundaries. Like, it's like, wow, what a game changer. So that's the basic program. Yeah.
Excellent. And so you've got these, what do you do to apply them? You've got these six things. Is this where they, how do they, what's the next step? They go through and, okay, they figure out what their attachment style is. And then they've got these six pillars of the integrated attachment theory. What do they do to, to, to go through that?
Yeah, I think everybody's a little bit different as to where they need at that time, and so we're going to work with that a little bit individualized. But it's really just a matter of, again, where are you at? So maybe this week we're going to do a workbook on learning more about our needs. How do I, and there's great videos. Again, I challenge everybody to join the personal development school. That's the one that I went through and learned through Gibson, and you can join that through my website. We'll talk about that later. But when you join that school, yeah, you can watch videos and then do some workbooks that actually begin to uncover our needs. We start to learn
Mhm.
about our needs and start to be more aware of what do I need every day to be happy? What do I need to really feel more fulfilled in my life? And then begin to, again, work in that manner so that, oh, okay, I'm feeling better about my situation in my life, and I'm not needing my partner, to fulfill and make me happy all the time. Because if we're doing that and just relying on a partner to always make us happy, then that becomes very challenging, right? So, and maybe this week it's communication. Maybe, oh my God, I know my wife and I, we just had a little disagreement last night and it didn't go well because we didn't have that tool. We were not practicing right. Maybe this week I need to do a communication exercise and learn some more about that. And so maybe it's a video, it's some videos, it's some workbooks that we can do to begin to kind of learn more how to communicate better. So it really just depends upon where that couple is at that time, and we try to utilize that. But ultimately we're trying to learn those 6 skills, if you will, and those 6 pillars. I
Yeah.
truly believe that the heart of it is the core wounds. And so ultimately we have to begin to really heal the core wounds, because until we heal the core wounds, our subconscious is
No
still going
doubt.
to kind of
Yeah.
drive the bus a little bit. So
Yeah.
but along the way, as we're healing the core wounds, we can still learn communication tools, we can still learn more about our needs, we can still learn how to change our behaviors. We begin to start pulling those other things in as well. So
Yeah. So I read last fall, I did a book study over Dr. Bruce Perry and Dr. Bruce Perry's book that he wrote with Oprah called What Happened to You. So changing the conversation from what's wrong with you to what happened to you.
mm-hmm.
Right. But one of the things that he talked about in that book was that we're receiving something like 11 million bits of data per second. And we can't process all of that. We can process maybe fix 50 to 60 bits, right? And so everything else is mapped onto how we felt in a previous situation. And so if you don't work towards overcoming those wounds that you talked about, you're not going to be able to move past it. Every time your wife says, you did this or didn't do that, you're thinking back to something in the past and
Yeah,
getting that defensive or that kind of thing, and you're not hearing what she's saying. You're defending, and your body is literally feeling like it's back in that time, in that previous uh, experience, whatever the experience was that created that wound.
that's exactly right. Yeah, you're 100% right. And I don't know the exact numbers of the brain and everything else, but yeah, the subconscious picks up so many signals, and it's way more than the conscious brain does. So so it's like the subconscious is getting fed constantly. And yeah, what I learned is that I think a lot of this really stems from our childhood, and the
Hmm.
first 7 years of a child's life are extremely invaluable as far as how they begin to perceive life and begin to experience things, and those wounds are really developed there. And so if there is abandonment, if there is some argument, if there is some of these stuff that's going on, it really begins to affect children, and they begin to process, and that's the filter they're going to see the world through.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so even though you can pick up some wounds later in life, absolutely, we can pick them up at any time in our lives, but
Hmm.
a lot of it does stem back to our early childhood. And what happens is the child develops this way of viewing the world and seeing things to protect itself, and it
Yeah.
learns how to protect itself and manage and survive
Right.
through their childhood, with these things in this situation. Unfortunately, we take that into our adult lives. And now, when we take these wounds into our adult lives and our relationships in our adult lives, it's now we're seeing it through a broken perceptive, a broken filter, if you will. And so we have this distorted view of how things are supposed to go.
Yeah.
And that's where now we're having these relationships in a broken manner and not being able to, communicate and filter it properly. And that's where it causes a lot of these problems. And it doesn't matter if you came from a really broken home like I did. My wife and I came from pretty dysfunctional homes, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah.
You can come from a pretty healthy, family, and some pretty good stuff there, but a child still can have wounds and still can
Absolutely.
kind of develop some issues, if you will, even if they come from a very good home. And so it's important that we're aware as much as possible, and not add to the trauma for a child as much as possible. But because even if we do it really well, sometimes kids can still have some problems growing up and still have some different unhealthy views, if you will, and still
Mhm.
develop trauma there.
Absolutely, for
Yeah.
sure. So, what would you say is the most common that you've seen of attachment styles? What do you think there?
I mean, I truly believe that a lot of us are fearful avoidant, and
Mhm.
we can tend to lean more anxious, or we can tend to lean a little bit more dismissive, depending upon the situation and the relationship. But I do think a lot of people are more in that fearful avoidance side, where we just have a lot of these different wounds, and we do kind of lean one way or the other. But if you were to kind of pick one or the other, I think a lot of women may lean more anxious, and a lot of men probably lean a little bit more dismissive
Mhm.
in that regard, because men are typically taught, boys don't cry, go to your room,
Yeah.
deal with that. And women, it's okay to share their emotions. It's okay to be a little bit more emotional. And so in general, you may see a little bit more, AP from females, and a little bit more dismissive, avoidant from males. But I do think a lot of us fall in that fearful of side, and we have a little bit of both, and we can kind of lean into the anxious or lean into the dismissive, depending. But it doesn't matter either way. They're all unhealthy, and it doesn't even matter which way you lean as much.
Yeah,
They're all just coping mechanisms. And
exactly.
that's the thing. So whether you're dismissive, anxious, or fearful, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's all about those core wounds. How do I fix those? How to begin to heal those so that I can now really be healthy and happy and free, and not be living in this wounded state, and really that's the key. So whether it doesn't matter to me as much of the label that we put on it per se. I think it's just
Sure.
a good idea of how we can view it, and puts us in a category where we can understand each other a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
Person that works this way kind of maybe leans dismissive. Person that kind of acts this way may lean a little bit more anxious. But at the end of the day, those are just categories. But it's the wounds and the other stuff that we really need to focus on.
And what do you think, or how do you go about healing from those wounds? Is that work that you work individually with individuals to go through, or do you have things that you
Yeah.
see that help, or
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I challenge everybody to join the personal development school through my website. You can go to myrelationshipfail.com. You can take the attachment style quiz for free, first and foremost. You can find out what your attachment style is. That's fun to do. And then join the personal development school, which is, again, Thais Gibson School. And in there, again, we can watch a ton of videos at your leisure when you're ready to do it, your timing. And there's great videos and workbooks, so that we can, again, work through certain situations. And then there's exercises that you can do that can help depending upon your situation and what you're dealing with. So there are exercises to say heal some of those core wounds, and we can begin to do some different things that may move the needle a little bit. And you can do this all on your own if you like, or again, if you want, like a coach. That's where I'm here to help and kind of give you some advice, maybe push you along a little bit, maybe give you steer you in one way or the other, so kind of help you kind of move the needle a little bit faster. I'll also give you a free session. So if you go to my website, sign up. I'll be happy to talk to you, and let's do a free strategy session and get you started. So by all
yeah.
means.
So do you have a really good story of, I mean, obviously your own situation, but do you have, you saw somebody that was just really, really struggling that you can talk, obviously not, breaking any privacy or anything like that, but,
Yeah.
just a really good example.
I mean, it's first and foremost, in that school that I talk about. There's a big group. There's daily webinars, and there's a really great group of people that are doing the same thing that we're doing, learning, growing, changing, and just absolutely getting great results and moving the needle in amazing ways. Some really wonderful discussions in there. Awesome, awesome, awesome opportunity. But yeah, in my own world, as far as, I have some friends. I have a good friend of mine actually who went through a very similar situation as mine, and learned a lot of these types of tools. And about a year and a half it took them. Him and his wife were separated, but
Mm.
ultimately, through a lot of the work and healing and stuff that they were able to do, they're actually back together and doing very well. And so again, I'm a big believer that when you do the work and you learn and you heal and you grow, anything can happen, and it does, including your spouse coming back into your life, or if God forbid the case is that kind of is damaged too far and it doesn't come back around. At least the work that you do will set you up to have a good opportunity to be with the right person and ultimately have a better relationship with somebody. And yeah, if you're in that parenting world, like a lot of you guys are, foster parenting, it's challenging, and it's got so many challenges on their
Yeah.
own, and bringing kids into there just makes it more. So I think having these tools, learning how to set some boundaries, really how to communicate with our spouse when we're kind of feeling more emotionally triggered, or we got this new situation with these kids and everything else going on. Like, how do we navigate that? That is really challenging, and if you don't have these tools, that's going to really be hard. So
One of the critical things
yeah.
that I see is that there's hope, right? We may have struggles, whatever the struggles are.
Right.
We were watching through SVU, right? Law and Order SVU, and these are way old episodes late 90s, early 2000s, and the doctor on there was like talking about how at the time in psychiatry they said, well, by 18 you're set, like you're done. There's no fixing, there's no hope. You are who you are, and that's what they really believed. And all the research that they're doing now is that there is hope. We can look back and we can see the wounds, and we can heal and move forward and do better. Be a better parent, be a better spouse, be a better employee, all the things. There is hope. we are, I think, more resilient than what we think we are. And
Yeah, yeah.
and if you're willing to do the work, change change is possible.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely. That's a lie from the pit of hell that you are locked in at 18. I don't believe that at all.
yeah,
Absolutely. And science is actually proving this. We can actually create new neurogenesis. Through
right,
neurogenesis, we can create these new neural pathways right
right,
in our brains.
yeah,
So it's even being scientifically proven that we can absolutely change. And that's the thing about Tice Gibson's work is, we weren't born with these attachment styles. These
right.
attachment styles were developed
Hmm.
through our lives because of our situations and
Yep.
the way we're kind of perceiving things. So
Hmm.
these learned behaviors, these learned thoughts and beliefs can actually be changed, and we can
Yeah,
actually learn new beliefs, new thought patterns,
exactly.
and completely change the way we're doing this. You can move from one of these unhealthy attachment styles to a healthier attachment style, and it takes some work. It takes some people are going to get it faster. Some people maybe takes a little bit more time. Everybody's situation is a little bit different per se, but you can absolutely move the needle the more you learn and grow and begin to heal these things.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you're not stuck by any means.
No,
That's
no,
that's
and
false.
like it. I mean, it took 45 years to get to where I'm at today. It's
It's
not going to
right.
happen over the next three
No,
weeks that I'm just going to get fixed. I mean, it takes time and effort.
yeah,
But like say to me the most important piece is that there is hope. We can overcome the past
oh
and
yeah.
be better, be a better parent, be a better spouse. I mean, there's hope, and that just to me is so important for us
Yeah,
to to kind of get down in the core, is that I am this way, but
yeah.
I don't have to be this way. There's hope, there's change.
The thing I loved about her program was those 6 core elements, because when I looked at those, it gives me 6, things that I can look at.
Yeah.
And I can say, "Oh, wow, yeah, I'm noticing I have some wounds. I notice I have these core wounds, right?" And there's lists
Mhm.
of core wounds that we can go through. Oh, but yeah, those resonate with me. Oh, yeah, I realize I need to get more in tune with my personal needs. Okay, like, and then as I discover those, I go, "Oh, wait a second. Of course, that makes sense why I'm not happy in this job, because it's not fulfilling my true needs, right?" And
Yeah.
so, so if I'm not in the right position there, maybe I need to make a change and again learn
Mhm.
that, right? And then getting more control of my emotions, learning from my emotions, understanding that my emotions are there to help me, not to hurt me. They're there to
Right.
help me learn and be aware and protect me. But how do I do that? Like, how do I do all that? And once I start to take this puzzle and kind of put it together and start to see that it makes a really beautiful painting, like, it's amazing. But until you learn that and start to put these pieces together, it just seems like a chaotic mess and you don't
Mm.
really understand it. That is the thing. I had no tools. And I always say there's nothing worse in the world than losing the person you love simply because you don't have the tools necessary to keep them. And a lot of us just
Mm.
don't have these tools. We weren't given them. Maybe again, parentings, we didn't see it. It wasn't displayed to us. Nobody taught us along the way, and now we're just winging it. And of course, it's very challenging when we're just winging it. But when we can see something that has some structure that we can work towards and slowly build on and build some momentum and have a head of steam on that, it's a game changer. I'll tell you, I'm night and day. My wife and I thought we had a pretty good relationship before, but the relationship we share today through this experience and all the knowledge that we've gained, the awareness that we have, and the way we handle things differently today, man, it's beautiful. And I wish everybody could learn some of these tools, because it's a whole different experience, doing things this way in a healthier way than the way we were just kind of doing it before, and letting our wounds and our own, bad perception and all these other things, destroy us slowly. It was like death by a thousand paper cuts. It's like not
Yeah.
one fight that ended it. It was just little fights over time. All these, nobody's communicating. We're not getting through. And that's eventually, I think, where a lot of us land. It's like we all fall in love, or that life is great. We meet our partner, we get married, we're going to have this wonderful life together. But slowly but surely, we begin to have these struggles and we begin to put ourselves in, and all of a sudden, 5 years, 10 years later, whatever it might be, now all of a sudden we're really just kind of frustrated, and we feel exhausted and we feel like giving up because we haven't learned how to move the needle, and we haven't learned how to move this together in a way cohesively that actually really works. And so it doesn't mean that we don't love this person we're with.
Right.
Sometimes it's just we don't know how to do it together, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And
if you haven't been
learning.
given the tools, it's understandable.
Well, yeah, if you didn't get the tools growing up,
That's right.
you've got to get the tools somewhere.
That's right.
But the tools are there, and
They are.
healing is possible, and a great marriage is
Yeah,
possible. If
for
you're,
sure.
if you're willing to look at, if you're willing to do the work and look
Yeah.
and get the tools, like you said. I mean,
And while we're talking about that real quick, I always want to make sure that people know that even if your spouse doesn't want to do this with you,
Yeah.
if you see there are issues, do it for yourself. And I was somebody put it to me this way, and I love this. Two is better than one, but one is better than none.
Yeah.
And so one person doing this work, one person learning this stuff, one person changing and adapting and doing things different can absolutely change the dynamics of your relationship. And your partner will follow along eventually. A lot of times they'll eventually figure it out and go, wow, this has changed. This is different. What are you learning? Maybe they even jump in there with you and want to learn it too. But if nothing else, start doing this for yourself and start making these changes. And you'd be surprised at how much your relationship can change just by you changing.
Just by
Yeah, one
figuring
person.
yourself out,
Absolutely.
doing the work yourself. Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
because I mean, you can't if you're just like, well, it's, them, they have to do,
Yeah.
in order for me to get better, they have to get better. Well,
Yeah.
that's not gonna.
Yeah. Or I'm not, you're right. I'm not going to do anything till they do it. Well, that's not going to help anything. Okay. That's just going to delay the pain and suffering.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what are some things that you would suggest that parents could do, you know, tomorrow, starting next week? What are some activities and things that they could do together, to really kind of help benefit their marriage?
I mean, that's a little bit individualized. I mean, for me, I always going to push people towards learning this stuff. And
Mm,
where can you learn it? I truly believe personal development school is a great place to go. Go to my website again, myrelationshipfail.com, and you can start to, get involved. The first thing you can do is watch that video that I watched, right? Learn
mm,
Tice Gibson on the Mel Robbins podcast. You can YouTube that. It's an hour and 15 minutes. That is a game changer. If
yeah,
you're excited after watching that video, then again, follow up, maybe go to my website, start learning, how to kind of do this stuff, do this work. And yeah, if your spouse wants to come along with you, great. Then you can do some of this together, and really be kind of delve into it. And that can be super exciting when you get two people on board. That's great. But even if not, and you decide you want to do it yourself, then start getting involved, start figuring this out. And again, yeah, just take it slow. And yeah, you never know. But everybody's a
yeah,
little bit different where you're
sure.
kind of at today
Yeah,
and where you want to go. But I feel like this is just a great place to start and then figure it out. Because
yeah,
until
for
you
sure.
figure out where you are and where you need to go, then we're just kind of floating. So
Yeah, and I'll put links to the. I listen to the Mel Robbins show. I'm
yeah,
actually
she's
in the
great.
middle. I'm actually reading. I set a goal at the start of this year that Monday mornings from 9:30 to 10:30, I'm gonna read. I'm
Awesome.
gonna personal development, business development, whatever it is, I'm gonna read. And so I'm working through the Let Them theory right now, and her work is really good.
Nice.
But yeah, so I'll put a link down to that episode, and then to your website and things like that. And but like you say, the important thing is to start.
Yeah.
Figure out a way to. It's not going to get better just doing what you've been doing, right? I mean, that's not going to help. And so figure out, go, whether it's your program or something, but there is hope for a better relationship and a better marriage, being a better parent, and all the things, if you're willing to do the work. And that to me is what's just so important, is that there is hope
Yeah.
to be better,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
then other things like date night and some of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great things, of course. But I think we can have date night, but if we don't really fix these other issues,
Yeah.
date night can turn into a not so great date. And so to me, it's like, let's do this work, and then we can have wonderful date nights, and the date
Yeah.
nights get even better. And then you want to have great date nights, and all of a sudden you are having date nights, and it just comes more naturally. It's
Yeah.
let's put this out more on autopilot, not in the unhealthy style. Let's put it in the autopilot into a healthy zone where now
Right.
we're just doing these things second nature. And boy, it just works. And now parenting becomes a little bit easier. My wife and I are much better parents today because of the work we've done. And she has completely changed her way of parenting and really connects with the kids much more deeply. And our kids have a voice today that they may not have had we continued on the pattern that we were on. and
Right.
and some of those unhealthy patterns that we're showing that we don't even see, kids pick up.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm showing anxiety, my son is going to recognize it even if I don't. And
Mm.
so, wow, wait a second, how powerful it is if I can get to the healing spot, and my kids are seeing parents who are healthy, secure, happy, know how to communicate together, know how to solve problems, know how to handle their self. Like, what a difference it is for kids to see that. And that to me is where my wife and I, our main focus is to not pass a lot of these poor issues, a lot of our trauma onto our kids.
Yeah.
That is our main goal. Like, we love each other, but we absolutely want to, not pass this on to our kids. We want our kids to have really great lives, and that's our goal for them. So it challenges us to continue to do the work.
For sure. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, because yeah, I mean, the the sins of the father are carried out to the third and fourth generation, right? And
Oh yeah.
so if we just do what we saw, they're going to be in the same boat you're in 30 years from now, right?
Yeah.
And so we have got to we got to do the work ourselves so that we can then turn around and be better spouses, be better parents, and things like that.
And a lot of it is generational. We just learn it from my father, learned it from his father, and
Yeah.
so down. We're breaking generational curses, if you will, and the buck
Right.
stops with me and my wife. We're gonna do things differently than they ever did, and so we don't always do it perfectly, but I think we're doing it pretty good, and
Yeah.
yeah, very thankful for
Well,
it.
and and perfection's not a goal, right?
It's
It's
not
not
attainable. Yeah.
possible, but being aware that
Yeah.
it's you talked about climbing the stairs one at a time. I mean, it's not an overnight change. Watch this video and you're going to be done. You're good, right?
Yeah.
This is hard, sometimes of a slog of work,
Yeah.
but it's a process, step by step, healing from those wounds, setting those boundaries, understanding emotions, realizing, how do I attach to this person, and how do they attach to me? Just understanding that.
Yeah.
If I had understood that 20 years ago, with my wife and I, man,
Yeah.
I would have solved so
Yeah,
many
same here.
problems.
No, if I had understood attachment theory before my wife and I really started to kind of fall apart in that way, it might have been able to stop the train wreck.
Yeah,
Absolutely. But yeah, no, that's I agree, man. Just yeah, be open to that, and yeah, let's just do the work. Yep,
very
things
good, very
things
good.
and here's the other thing, real quick. It doesn't have
Yeah,
to take years. Sometimes we
no,
talk about this. Oh, it's so much work. It's so much work. It is work, but you know what? In 2 months, 3 months, you can see major differences in just a couple months.
oh sure,
And then, as you continue down the line, it just continues to get better and better. And then all of a sudden you kind of hit a nice crescendo. But at
yeah,
that point, now you're at a pretty good level. And you know what? Then you continue to get better maybe, but at least at that point, you're at a point where your relationship is working fairly well and
yeah.
you've got things really working in a nice way. And sometimes it can just be a matter of a couple months to really be a game changer. So, and then just take it from there, continue to get better and better.
Yeah, the key. I think the key is to start, right?
Absolutely.
Just start. Take the steps. Do the first thing. Take the attachment quiz.
Yeah.
Figure out where you're at. Maybe get your wife to figure out where they're at, and just start. Just
Yeah.
I think maybe be discontent enough to be willing to start. Right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, sometimes it takes a complete failure like my wife and I had, and that's
Yeah.
why I call my business "Make Your Relationship Fail" or "My Relationship Fail," because we talk about how sometimes, unfortunately, it does take us hitting rock bottom before we're willing to take a look at ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And I really hope that most people don't have to get there. If you can recognize, hey, we are having some issues. I notice there's a struggle. This is getting a little bit frustrating. That's the time to take a look. Those are the little red flags. Those are the signals saying, hey, you know what, there's a problem. Let's fix this. Let's work on that before it gets to that real critical stage. And, so try to grab it sooner rather than later. And you can avoid, hopefully the real breakups and the real, divorce and restraining orders and craziness like my wife and I had to go through to get here. But even if you do end up at that rock bottom spot, again, there is hope. There's always change. There's things can happen. I promise you, hang in there. Don't panic. Just focus, relax, and do some of this work and realize that you're being given a chance to change. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of hitting rock bottom, because I used to think I was being punished with these things. I felt like I was always being punished. Instead, I realize now I'm being given an opportunity to grow, to learn, to change, and
Mm.
not stay stuck in something that is mediocre. I'm not staying stuck in a relationship that is broken and unhealthy. Right?
Mm.
I'm being given an opportunity to actually fix this in a way that actually can really be wonderful. And hopefully that's what happens for you. But if nothing else, and you fix yourself, and you begin to get to a point where, wow, I know how to handle myself. I
Mm.
promise you, something great's going to happen from this. It's all meant for good in the long run if we do take this necessary steps to do that, right? If we
Yeah.
take the steps to learn, I always say they call it a break up, not a breakdown. So we're going
Mm.
to break upwards. That means we're going to level up.
I
We're going to
like
use
it.
this experience to level up. We're not going to use it to completely let it ruin our lives. We're just going to learn from it and change. And at
Yeah.
the end, it's going to actually be a better thing for us, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, man, Brian, thank you for reaching out, and I love your work, and I read your story on your site, and I was like, man, this is, like I said, you know, so many foster parents just there. It is such a struggle to ensure that the kids feel safe and secure and stable and
Yeah.
loved and all the things that the marriage really gets put on the back burner. And so I'm gracious and grateful that you contacted me to get on here today. And again, we'll put the links to the podcast episode and to your website and the attachment quiz and things like that on there. And so any parting thoughts for us?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank you so much, Matt, for having me on the show again today and being able to share this information with people. I have a heart to really I have a goal of just trying to save as many relationships and marriages as possible by sharing this information. And so that's my mission. And for you to allow me the opportunity to be here to do that today was extreme gratitude towards you. And yeah, I just hope and pray that anybody out there who's listening, who's struggling, I know that it can be challenging and parenting and relationships. Boy, it's hard. It's going to push you. As a new parent, my son's now 5.5 years old. I know how hard it is to be a parent. And, it's challenging. It's going to bring out the best and worst of us. But I truly believe that the relationship has to be important too. We have to make sure that our
Yeah,
spouse, we're focusing on that too and not forget and neglect them because we're partners. We're
yeah,
partners in this. And, we want our kids to see good, healthy partners and how good, healthy relationships work. And so yeah, don't forget each other when you're really trying to help everybody else and the kids. I think it's beautiful. I think foster parenting is an amazing thing. I have nothing but mad respect for people who choose to do that. And I hope maybe even someday I'd be a foster parent. I've always
yeah,
thought about it.
yeah.
So it's something that I'm open to myself. But yeah, I love you guys for what you're doing. And thanks so much for having me on the show today, Matt. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Brian.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much, and thank you again to Amarillo National Bank for your grant to support our placement packages. That just means the world that you guys continue to support us in that way, guys. Next week we're going to have Denise Kendrick on. She runs Embrace. Down in Dallas, Embrace, Texas. They do some amazing work. They fostered and adopted. They have nine, Brian. They have 9 kids. Nine
Wow.
kids.
God
They've
bless them.
adopted.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yes. They've
Wow,
adopted. They've had several bio kids, and they've adopted several in
man,
foster care. The work that they do down there
that's
in
amazing.
Dallas is beautiful, and their story is amazing. And so, guys, be sure to like, subscribe, and
I'm going
share,
to
and
tune
all
in for
that
that one.
things. Yeah, and then tune in next week. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.